Hi, thanks for tuning in to our Practical Nerds weekly podcast. I'm Shub, and together with my partner and co host Patrick, we normally invest in founders in design, construction, renovation, and logistics technology. Many of our friends in the ecosystem wanted us to start a podcast on the built world, and in return, we decided to honor their request with a show about nothing at all.
Nice. That one works, Shub.
Nice. All right, Patrick, I think we've got someone with us over here. And Adam, you look awfully familiar. How do I know you, sir?
I stole your seat for the show. The gang's all here. You know, it's good. It's good to be live with you guys on Practical Nerds, and I appreciate the opportunity to join you on this episode. Should be fun.
I thought I had seen him on Bachelor in Paradise or something.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but you know, yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me.
I think I've also heard that you might be one of the top AI investors out there, and someone who I really need to learn a thing or two about. Rather, thing or two from about AI.
I'm going to be
Wow.
steel manning the AI craze against not anti, but proponents a little bit left and open ended from your guys' end. Yeah, I'm happy to deep dive into some AI. I think AI has a lot of promise. I think you're getting caught up in the vortex of a little bit over exuberance from capital allocators. And I mean, it's nothing new. It's your typical capital allocators who have in the past historically been conditioned to this, we'll call it lily pad hopping. And I think right now we're on this lily pad of AI, And so
They're like butterflies. They're flying from flower to flower.
Exactly.
Nice.
Look, I think there's going to be a lot of value that's going to be born, that's going to blossom out of this AI craze. But I think a lot of the other companies is going to be, is my opinion, going to be that capital is going to be in a way. Looking back, like we just lit that on fire. I don't think there's going to be a lot of value that's going to be really created from a lot of these speculative bets and investments. Look, I mean, taking a step back, if you want to look at the distribution of value, if you look at NVIDIA, the closest to the value creation was obviously NVIDIA. So you had this big buying, hoarding aspect, going from $100 a share.
You know that the SEC is going after you if you're a shareholder and you're pushing NVIDIA,
listen,
right?
I'm not talking about book. I've got no shares in NVIDIA, just to be on the up and up. But yeah, look, it went from $100 a share to now, it's in the $1 trillion club. And I think they're the foundational models competing against these hyperscalers, Google, Microsoft, bound to be Twitter and Facebook. It's just kind of a losing play. I think that a lot of the value is going to be on the application or the tooling layer. So like vertically oriented solutions. I think we have been conditioned to saying vertical SaaS. I think in a not too distant future, everyone's going to be saying vertical LLMs. So I think that's going to be kind of the new.
Sounds like you listened to the last couple of episodes, man.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Sounds a little bit like it. But
I find that I don't know why, but I'm getting excited by a lot of what you're saying, but I couldn't really understand any of it. But I like the sound of it. Right?
Exactly.
So
Nice.
that's a good start for me.
Maybe we should make it more concrete. I mean, we had this tradition once over here in Practical Nerds where we viewed back and hey, maybe starting with you, Shub, what's the most interesting model company you've seen recently? And I'm sure Adam will have one from the AI space.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I wish I had anything to share from the AI side. It's just boring old labor shortage, skilling, right? Solving for gainful employment. A few of those themes. Those are the kinds of opportunities that I'm right now paying close attention to and digging deeper and deeper. Yeah.
Anything in particular?
So I think a couple of opportunities, which I think I've referenced in one of our previous episodes. Solving for the skill labor shortage. One on the blue collar side, another, in fact, on the white collar side, creating a new pool of highly skilled white collar workforce in AEC who are trained specifically on being tooled, or maybe retooled is the better adjective to use here, retooled for a new age sort of AEC environment using more tools in the modern era with collaborative tools and whatnot. Uh, I think the future is bright for those solutions. So digging in a bit further, I mean, the sad part is none of them have anything to do with AI. So they'll have their work cut out for them in the
Yes, I
future.
think there's always an asterisk to that
Yes,
statement.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's how vertical AI will play out, right? It's not that everybody will be. I mean, I've been making fun on here about now we back this founder and she or he is one of the best 50 in the world in AI. And I'm like, okay, I've seen this post for 51 companies. How is that possible? That we have like 51 VCs claiming all of their companies out of the top 50. And
Yeah.
okay, so there's this horizontal game that's certainly to be played, and there will be defaults, there will be standards, and there will be 1, 2, 3 winners that become the default. I was making the analogy the other day on LinkedIn that, hey, of course, I mean, there was React was the winner in mobile frameworks for mobile app development. And no one remembers the other 12, 50 that got funding to build something similar. But then there's a million companies that actually apply React and build great vertical businesses out of that. And so, Shub, I think to your point, right, it's right to say not yet, because it might not be a company that becomes the default LLM, but for sure they will be applying it at some point.
Yeah.
I think you're spot on. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like you look at look at the other cycles. You look at the internet and social. You look at the internet, right? So search was, I think it was really started in around late 90s. If you would have just waited till 2003, you would have captured 98% of that market with Google, right? And same thing with social. So I think there's some things to learn from previous cycles and apply that to our today's investment philosophy and methodologies. I think it's really easy to get sucked into this vortex of hype. I will say though, there's been a lot of hype or a lot of noise, I guess you could say, about the large raises, and so I think
I don't know, not on here.
Yeah, exactly right. It's kind of like show me one company that was overfunded, that short circuited the milestone based funding events that
Exactly.
really. Show me one company.
Exactly.
I've asked so many people this, and no one could give me one company.
So there are models where you can take shortcuts, which are, I mean, in my experience within Construction-Tech, AEC-Tech, service-oriented models that find benefits from being at scale. But then when you look at OpenAI, and we had Martin on here last week, and we're discussing, hey, it costs a couple of cents still to run a query on OpenAI. Sorry, I can't see the scale effect. I mean, what's the scale effect here? Yes, on the training and labeling, really? I mean, yes, but not on running the query. Whereas in our business or in our sector, marketplaces, for example, that achieve scale, or education techs, to Shub's point, right, that could help train millions of new workers into skilled labor. Okay, so there's a scale effect, and maybe I can take some shortcuts. But on the other hand, I mean, sorry, that's a quick detour, but imagine you're giving 150 million to a new construction material company. Are you really thinking you can shortcut science?
No. Yeah, I mean, I think, at least at Fundamental, I think we all agree that, constraint kind of breeds discipline and creativity, and actually allows these founders to make great art. I think if you try to short circuit that, you become very undisciplined and you get very distracted. But even like taking the one company that, shall not be named, or if you do want to name it, that raises $100 million, all of that money is going into buying hardware. It's buying all these, these NVIDIA H100. It's subsidized. You're basically subsidizing capex. The GPUs are
right.
investing. You're buying chips at the end of the day. That's all. That's all you're buying.
That's right.
It doesn't make any sense. So I think that might. I think it's like this. I think it's my own personal view, but I think funds are getting a little itchy. You got to show activity, to stack those fees. So
Yes. Yes. LP's asking, hey, so I mean, what have you done in AI?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they have to show that they're active, they're being competitive in this space. I get that. I just don't know if investing in that direction, or at least having the capital that you're investing in the firm being used to buy these hardware. And if you think of like the distribution, the cost curves, like within 36 months, this training models that would cost say 50 million would be, I don't know, maybe a tenth of that in 18 to 24 months. So it doesn't make sense to be using that capital in such a frivolous manner. But that's my own opinion.
Yeah, I mean, someone's got to fund like the AWS of I don't know AI or AWS farm of AI chips. That would be an interesting business. I mean, I like our sector better, but at least there I would understand the horizontal play.
Yeah, exactly. I think we briefly touched on that. Nat Friedman over at GitHub, he bought $80 million worth of these big rigs at NVIDIA, and essentially he's allowing all these AI firms to go and like train on use and rent out these machines. And so I think you're having like a new spin on the AWS model, or even an accelerator model. So I don't know if he's getting some type of compensation in form of equity, but it's a smart play if you take it from that attack vector.
So Adam, any interest? So yeah, Shub, go ahead.
I mean, I was going to say, surely, if Patrick and I still think that you're the AI guy at Foundamental, like really cheerleading for the space, there must be something out there which still probably makes sense, has a bright future, and is still worth backing amidst all of this hype.
Yeah. So I think if you really zoom in, I think on the application, on the service layer, these kind of vertical approaches, at least in our vertical in our space that we're investing in, kind of the built world or construction. In the B2B context, product discovery often occurs, outside of marketplaces because it's very the complexity of these products. So if you can kind of bring on, the majority of those products, and I think it was like maybe 80 to 90% of those products are procured, bought offline. If you can now use LLMs to essentially short circuit and have like AI co-pilot to essentially mimic what a on-person customer service person would be doing online into a marketplace, I think that would be quite impactful. So I'm really excited for those solutions.
You seem to be describing something like an Algolia or Elasticsearch for construction materials.
100%. Yeah, it would be the Algolia for building materials, and I think that has a lot of promise.
I can sign up for that.
Yeah.
I mean,
look, in the name of the game is one to have a high conversion rate, as well as if you can for the firms that are essentially deploying these LLMs, these agents, these AI co-pilots, if it could reduce the actual OpEx. Or you could sell more products. You have a higher, catalog to sell to your customers or prospect new customers. I think that would be a lot of value creation for a lot of these material marketplaces. So digging in some of those solutions. So more to report, hopefully, in the coming weeks.
And why do you think a solution like this is more the need of the hour compared to a lot of these super cool horizontal AI solutions, which I see so many of my friends getting behind?
Yeah. So I think, so what type of horizontal solutions? You mean like more of?
I mean, all these super cool things that I'm sure they're very, very high end deep tech stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So
right?
exactly. So I think I think the race to proprietary data, I think is very critical and crucial for long-term, competitive edge or competitive advantage. I think you're doing this horizontal play. Everyone's starting at the same spot because you're leveraging the same model from the very beginning. It's very competitive. It's very red ocean. It just would be highly competitive. And I think if you can start leveraging these solutions that would be a high pull-in effect for these B2B oriented solutions that no one else is really paying really much attention to, I think is going to create a lot of value. So I think you're going to start seeing a lot of pull-in effect if you start seeing some of these solutions being applied to our vertical. So
I think that's what's exciting here, right? Is the application vertically, not reinventing necessarily the wheel and being one of the 1,000 people that try to be a default LLM and only one will succeed.
Yeah,
2 or 3 maybe, whatever. But on the vertical space, you can really build like billion-dollar winners. As we say in Fundamental, Adam, good luck deal. Good luck.
Oh, come on. I think it's more than a good luck deal.
Yeah. That's very exciting.
I think it's a very exciting prospect. I mean, what we have discussed, I mean, often obviously at Fundamental, but also on Practical Nerds. I mean, at least I think a lot of the horizontal LLMs or more generic sort of AI solutions, from a timing perspective, I feel they're not well suited for the construction or the AC tech industry because the data layer which these AI solutions could tap into doesn't even properly exist yet for the construction industry. In fact, you need firms that either create that data layer through lots of transactions getting formally captured on record and so on, or the application is sort of managed end to end, or you gain visibility end to end on a very specialized set of applications or use cases, which is what the firm you just described seems to, at least the idea to me seems quite compelling.
That is so true about the data and creating actually the layer. I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah.
And this firm that you're talking about, Adam, I mean, which part of the world are they based out of?
The U.S., so
Nice.
right out of Silicon Valley. To the mountains.
Bald Eagle country.
That's the Freedom Eagles, as we like to say here at
Nice.
I have a question for the two of you. So earlier this week, I was at a panel discussion, and I was asked by someone during the discussion, hey, the US always seems to be racing ahead on innovation, on willingness to back cool companies, and so on. Why are folks in Europe always seemingly conservative, lagging behind, etc.? Right? So it's quite convenient that Adam, obviously you're American. Patrick, I think if you were to paint you with a slightly broader brush, let's call you European for the sake of this discussion.
I'm okay with that. Yep.
So where do the two of you stand on this topic?
I mean, I would broadly back up. I understand where the sentiment is coming from, and I'm always a freak of data and substantiating claims. But on this one, I think none of us right now has the data. But just directionally, I would assume that the data would back up the general sentiment that the US has a higher production rate of unicorns, if you use that as a measure of success. If you go into university level, it probably has a higher rate of scientific research publications and patents than Europe as a whole. Although Germany, for example, on the scientific patents is extremely high up there. But then transferring that into business application and building businesses out of the scientific research, Europe actually, I mean, that data is not hard to find. You will find that it actually severely lags behind. So I understand where the sentiment is coming from, but show me a US company that has a US unicorn, younger than, let's say, 15, 20 years in the market, has actually won the European market.
So it's a really good question.
It's not easy to apply this stuff here. You do need local solutions in most verticals.
I would also say, and this might get me in hot water, but I think regulation plays a big role as well. I think the EU is a little bit more sensitive on people's data, which I think is right and sound. If you look at OpenAI, when Sam came to, I think it was to Germany, he was like, the majority of questions was, when can you open source it? And so so I think regulation certainly has a play there.
Sorry, you're referring to Sam Altman of OpenAI, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's really interesting to see like how countries are, what's their temperature and their posturing. If you look at Japan, and essentially it's wild west. There's going to be no copyright. They want to get everything. They want to get out of any inhibitors or prohibiting for AI really growth in that country. I think this States is having this AI czar, that's being formed, which I don't think that's going to really help matters all that much. It's really hard to say how you're going to regulate it. But yeah, I would have to agree with Patrick. I can't really name any firms in the past. Would you say the last 20 years, Patrick, that dominated Europe?
Yeah, or younger than 20 years. I mean, just take from our space, right? Procore, founded 2003, 4, I want to say.
Yeah.
Not a market leader in Europe by a long shot.
Yeah.
So it takes a long time to actually adapt and build local solutions in most vertical B2B plays, and for sure in our sector.
Yeah.
So that's where I stand on that. But Shub, where do you stand?
I mean, look, I took the liberty, as I invariably do, as you guys, of course, know very well, to slightly broaden the scope of the question. So what my leaning, I guess, as an eternal optimist, is, I mean, in Europe or most of the markets. So look, firstly, there's no denying the US is by an enormous margin the largest economy, most successful venture investment market. I mean, there can't be a second opinion on that. With that said, I think in each country,
if you exclude China.
Yes, so I would say China, depending on which time in history you look at, definitely was a close second. Or in fact, maybe in 2019, maybe even have been number one in terms of rate of creation of unicorns.
Right.
I think if you take a lengthy period, I would say, I think it'll have to be the US. I'd say if we, for example, narrow down to specific countries or regions or market clusters, I feel there's another factor. The US, of course, also has the benefit of tasting the most success in terms of venture-backed outcomes, which proved to be universally adopted. And when I say universally adopted, I'm again using the term loosely. And that, of course, breeds confidence, right? So success breeds confidence. That allows you to take more courageous bets. Of course, that also breeds hype. That's a different discussion to have, but it definitely also breeds confidence. And I think a lot of markets, each of them is in its own sort of evolution in how it discovers and crosses that stage in finding that next stage of venture-backed outcomes, which become accepted by the market as like a mainstream solution. I would like to believe a lot more countries. So we'll progressively all adopt more tech in our lives, see more and more venture-backed outcomes becoming mainstream, and that's my view as more of a long-term optimist, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, one last comment on AI in the States. I think it's if you look at the debt ceiling, I think the Americans are really kind of hanging on, really to get out of this hole that we've been consistently digging in terms of our spend is like through growth, and I think everyone's hoping that maybe AI would be the growth driver to maybe get out of this major deficit that we really find ourselves in. So I think there's a lot of hopes and dreams and hopium that's really built in behind this. So it's a collective wish.
Speaking of hopium, I mean, I guess that's as good of a tie-in as I'll get, I suppose.
Man.
I mean, clearly you love AI, right? So we acknowledge that. I'm sure there must be other things that get you really excited about in the US.
Yeah, I mean, like we continue to be very interested. I think we were first on the scenes on like noticing that labor deficiency. I think across multiple regions, and we still. I think our positioning is still resolute. We're very enamored with solutions that can maybe help pirouette around which looks like to be a very bleak future. There's going to be a massive retirement. The young demographics don't want to enter the trades, and wow, it's a very bleak future. We're going to be building the most complex buildings with the least experienced individuals. How do you get around that? Through automation, or hey, why don't we try to build a new on-ramp to upskill the new labor force, as you're mentioning. And then for funds too, we've been really focusing on, at least in the States, of I think we started noticing this last year of the States was in this Cold War with the CCP, and that was having as an impact in terms of the supply chain. And so
great that you speak in past tense about that. That gives me confidence about the world.
And so, look, that means a lot of things, right? One, the supply chain is being really impacted severely in terms of pricing, lead times, et cetera. So, one, how do you get around that? Can you build something that can hedge around these really volatile swings? Really interested there. We made an investment there that's still kind of under the radar. And then, as well as I think the States is going to be looking to our southern neighbors in LatAm to build new trade routes. And so how do you get behind the distribution of goods and services, or supply chain oriented of getting those goods up north in North America and the United States? So I've been really focused.
That's such an interesting theme for me, right? Because I'm joking around with some of the younger folk in our team. Hey, what do they teach you in history in school these days? Because when you query them on history, seriously, a colleague of mine told me, oh, I had a shitty teacher and we stopped at 1700. I'm like, okay, you didn't even get into the interesting and relevant part recently. Right. And so how that relates to what you're saying about, right? Southern neighbors, supply chains.
Yeah.
1930s, I mean, under Roosevelt, basically, the whole mantra was that, hey, the Americas is a hemisphere and we don't want any foreign interference with the business in our back door, and we're all, I don't think he's used to say community, but I feel like that was the spirit, right? That you basically take care of each other, watch out for each other, and in a very volatile world at the time. And so I feel like that's a very interesting theme coming back with regard to that part of history, is that we know it through some of our portfolio companies in Latin America. The Chinese economy is trying to stake claims not only in Africa anymore, not only along the Silk Road anymore. They're trying to stake claims by bringing cement clinker to certain parts of Latin America and then grinding it there and bringing investment into the port infrastructure, etc. And so, the US is certainly taking notice of that and increasing more and more business and cross-border economy with a southern neighbor. I mean, that's the best strategy to actually make sure that the hemisphere is going the direction you want it to go.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, well said. Yeah, it's I was when you said China was finding routes to get around and pirouette those what seem to be kind of blockades. It's like the Jurassic Park. Life will find a way. Alpha will find its way. So
oh, terrible movies.
It will find a way. But yeah, no, I think you're spot on. Should be really interesting in the coming months and the next year or so. So.
Yeah, as for me, I mean, most interesting recent deal is probably a portfolio company that is currently raising a large round, and this is a European firm, and similar to the theme that you just mentioned, Adam. So in Europe, in construction, prices and availabilities of material, lead times, have been a huge problem for years, not 1 year, years plural. And so what this company is doing is actually curating supply from countries that traditionally, and whose suppliers traditionally don't have direct access to the European market, because the European demand side, general contractors, wholesalers, I don't want to say snobbish, but they are very brand sensitive. And then it's Western brands that oftentimes get the business, Western brands that dominate the distribution channels in wholesalers and retailers. And so this company is actually giving these undiscovered, unbranded suppliers, but who either already produce for the brands in the West as a contract manufacturer, or who otherwise have the same level of quality. They give them a seat at the table, right? And so now we're in an environment where prices are skyrocketing, availabilities are not there. Oops, China, maybe we need a China +1, +2, +5 strategy.
Right.
I find that to be an extremely compelling theme, I must say.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think there's so many themes around cross-border interconnectedness and how you solve for it, either to discover new supply or to sort of emerge as like a business continuity solution. It's quite fascinating, and I think it's a unique window of opportunity in one way, but also like a time period we find ourselves in where I think we could say similar things about supply chains, similar things we could say about establishment of trade routes, who you choose to do business with. Similar things
Yeah.
perhaps also apply in the movement of people, frankly. It's quite a
Yeah,
unique, quite a unique year, or
truck
maybe.
drivers, baby.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
That's it.
yeah. I think you're right. Having to, I guess, make your supply chain more robust and not be dependent on one entity or one region for 90% of your goods. That's really showed us in the past 2 years. That's just not a winning playbook. And so you can find high quality, cost effective, inexpensive building materials. It seems like it's a win-win from both sides, suppliers as well as the demand side.
For sure.
Nice.
Adam, another thing we like to do on Practical Nerds is to look forward, right, to what's coming up ahead in the next week. Like, what's the most exciting company or the most exciting theme that you are most looking forward to digging into in the next week?
I should caution you. One of my portfolio founders said he was disappointed with me that I didn't say him, and I had a meeting with him. So,
So there you go, Adam. That's the expectation now.
Nice. Let's see here. In the coming week, you say we'll use that as a time box.
I mean, you can use you can broaden it if that makes it easier.
Well, I appreciate
8 days. 8 days.
I appreciate that. I think it's a continuation of a theme that we've been very excited about. There's one firm that's essentially be able to create 3D representations of an object through just 2D images, leveraging kind of this neural radiance field. It's called NERFs. So basically, like creating digital twins of objects and places for multiple. You're being applied for a generalist approach, but I think they're going to be moving in our space quite aggressively. I think that space, the asset creation, I think is up for grabs. I think there's a lot of alpha, a lot of value being created there, or will be created there in the coming years. That's the firm. It's a pre-seed firm from Silicon Valley. Really hit it off with the founders. So we'll see where this thing kind of fleshes out. So yeah. How about you?
How about you, Shub?
I mean, so in addition to the themes I spoke about, solving for the skilling and workforce availability, there's a couple of opportunities where, so the firm sort of tries to replicate what we've seen as success stories both within and outside our portfolio from India, in other markets, in other geographies that we cover on the emerging market side. Again, I guess an interesting and recurring theme that I mentioned in our previous discussions on Practical Nerds, Patrick. I think the common theme between a lot of these opportunities that I've discussed, interestingly, each and every one of them is net profitable, which is like, but none of them have AI. So I guess that still sucks and still makes them uninvestable.
I can't take meeting. You didn't say AI 3 times on every slide. I'm sorry about that.
I know.
Sorry. Sorry.
Unfortunately, net profitable doesn't abbreviate to AI.
Sorry. You can't bring it to the investment committee.
Exactly. I love everything about the company except you didn't use AI enough. So it's a no for me. It's a pass. Sorry.
Oh man, we're laughing about it, but what's going on in Europe right now in these seed rounds for like horizontal AI? It reminds me
I
so
wanted
much
to
of
say, I mean,
2021.
to Adam, what you're saying, I think 10, 15 minutes ago,
Yeah.
I think we haven't seen anything close to the peak of the hype.
No, not at all.
Feels like to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially if you want to use the narrative that there was a lot of capital sitting on the sidelines, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these fund managers are getting a little itchy, and so LPs are susceptible to be getting caught up in hype as well, and so I think you might get pushed and goaded
Yeah.
to make these big outlandish bets. Again, 98% of them will you're better off just going to Vegas and having fun with that capital rather than investing in some of these
Yeah.
firms. But that's my own opinion. It should be interesting.
Patrick, what's the most exciting thing you're looking forward to at work? Only
Yeah, I'm
only
looking.
at work.
Okay, well, that's good because my life is very unexciting. Uh, Glad for the scoping here. Yeah, I'm actually looking at my calendar right now,
Yeah.
and I actually have to tell you something that we launched today because that sets what I'm looking forward to next week. So I'm looking forward to finally getting back to writing an AECVC post. I do all the research, all the writing myself, all the slides, etc. And I haven't been doing that for almost 3 weeks now. And I'm looking forward to getting back to that. But the reason was actually a great reason because together with a group of other AEC techies, David Basulto, Alain Vaha, shout out to you guys, a couple of founders like Kuram, Marius, Lisa, Max, Altaf, of course, several others. Together we grouped up, we teamed up, and we said, hey, let's actually fix this whole intransparency and opacity around what have VCs and investors really done in AEC technology and construction technology. And so we launched today as a group, open source project, open for everyone, no paywall, no advertising, no monetization, nothing. It's open out there for everyone. The most comprehensive and objective database of what investors and VCs have done in the AEC tech space. It's out there. Go to thewallhack.com. You'll find everything always for free. And it's a community thing. It's not something that we have done, but just something that we were proud and privileged to support. And I must say, I think it turned out great. It's very objective, curated. And then I also want to give a shout out to our, one other contributor to this is Traxon, which is, in my opinion, the leading global data provider of venture capital data. I personally think they're much more comprehensive and accurate than any of their competitors out there. You would think of someone like Crunchbase or PitchBook. Traxon, in my opinion, is superior. And they have been actually very supportive of us as a group, Alain, and David and all the guys, that they would allow us to use their data and republish it in this wrapped form for thewallhack.com. So I'm very grateful for that. And I think it's going to be an amazing resource for founders in AEC tech to find the investors that fit for them the best. So go to thewallhack.com and find the investors that you guys want to work with.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say,
Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
I got like a little sneak peek as well, and I got to say, like, us being the venture funds that's kind of living and breathing and noticing what funds are active, it's still challenging for us, and I can only imagine for the founders trying to kind of pierce the veil of who's active, who's not. I see this as like inordinate value, and I can only multiply that by 100 if you're a founder or founders looking to just cut through the noise, just see objectively who's active, who's not. And, so I think the founders are going to just like really see a lot of value in utilizing.
Exactly. So for example, we have two data and by we, I mean us as a group, as a community that brought this thing online. We have, for example, 2 data properties there that you can filter by is, hey, how many deals in AEC tech specifically have they actually done in the last 12 months? How many deals have they done on average over the last 3 years per year? I mean, that's something that can tell you right away who's actually deploying and who's just wasting your time and collecting information.
Yeah, And actually, there's a kind of a buyer beware, right? Because like there's a lot of funds are saying that they are active when they really are not, but they're showing that they're active by taking meetings. And I think it's a little bit of a smoke screen, and it's like gives like another arrow in the founder's quiver to say like just go through the noise. Who's actually investing, deploying capital? Those who are just saying they are just harvesting your data and not moving forward. So I think this is going to be very impactful for the founder community.
I mean, I have to say I was quite surprised by the level of granularity in the wall hack. I think some of the findings there took me by surprise as well. I mean, quite often, and I think each of you can identify with this. I think founders also sometimes sort of stumble into ours because they discover that, hey, they're looking for a very focused AEC focused fund, which has actually tasted success in the domain, not just sort of kept stumbling along making investments. And many a time also founders from other countries looking for investors actually backing firms in those regions or those countries. I think it's a phenomenal exercise. I was quite surprised by what I saw, and I think go ahead, Patrick.
It gets updated weekly, right? I mean, we've as a team, as a group that did this, we have updated the data, automated the data pipes. It gets updated weekly, so no stale snapshot or like one of these top 100 lists. No. This tries to be like everyone that has done something in AEC tech and has some level of relevance. Right now, the database contains more than 1,000 investors that actually have met the qualification criteria, and so for those, every week the data pipes will automatically update the numbers.
Yeah, I think
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, I would love to keep doing this with you guys, but I got to get back to some boring work, my dear gents.
Nice.
As much as it pains me to say that.
Does it start with mojito or caipirinha?
Unfortunately, it doesn't involve AI either. That's the saddest part of it.
Okay. Well, I feel for you.
Yeah.
And it was great having you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
All right.
We're looking forward to the day you run this baby.
What's that?
Yeah.
We're looking forward to the day that you run this baby.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Of course. I love it.
Cool. Well, Shub, awesome. I hope to see even less of you next week.
I wouldn't mind that because I feel like I've been seeing too much of you recently, Patrick.
Sorry. All right, gents.
All right, guys.
Happy weekend. Ciao.
See ya.
Bye.